Welcome to the Guitar Hang Podcast. I'm your host, John Stancorp. Today, we've got an amazing guest, one of the most versatile and talented bass players in the business, Matt Bissonette. Matt's toured and recorded with some of the biggest names in music, including Joe Satriani, REO Speedwagon, and the legendary Elton John. Matt is the singer, songwriter, and leader of the supergroup Redcoats. His rock-solid groove musicality and adaptability have made him one of the most sought-after bassists in the world. From shredding alongside guitar icons to holding down the low end in massive arena tours, his career is a testament to his incredible skills and passion for music. Whether in the studio or on the road, he's been a crucial part of some of the greatest music we've heard over the years. It's my honor to welcome the one and only Matt Bissonette to the show.
Hey, what's that green guitar on your right side? The other side.
Oh, that one. It's a Slash model Firebird.
Ooh, man.
Damn thing! It's so heavy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's a bit neck heavy.
Holy smokes, that thing's a commitment, man. That's huge. It's brown. I don't know why I thought it was green.
Yeah, it's got a very weird, actually, when you look at it, it's kind of got like this greenish gray vibe to it.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. That thing is huge. Man, well, there's your workout for the day right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I may have, the first time I knew about it would have been the early 80s with the David Lee Roth era.
Yeah.
You know, the Skyscraper tour with you and Greg.
And you're still my friend after that.
That's right. Well, that was a time, it was a celebration of excess, you know, that whole time, you know, that musical climate already was just more, where more
right.
Celebrated. But
yeah.
A tour like that, and I'm back in those days, you guys would be out for long periods of time over several legs.
Right.
That must have been an endurance.
Well, it was way more easier when you're single and you're younger and stupid and just go out there and, you know,
right.
Go out there and you don't even realize you've spent 6 months straight. Now it's like I'm leaving today for 2 weeks and I feel like I'm going away for forever. You know,
yeah.
It's kind of
yeah, as we get older, the travel thing is just, you know, even I guess with Greg touring with Ringo, it's pretty nice travels. Yet at the same time, it's sleeping in somewhere else other than your own bed, and just your body constantly fluxing with different time changes and that kind of stuff is just.
It's amazing, man, because especially like the European travel, when you go over there and jet lag is a different thing now than it was then. And I think being young and stupid has its advantages, you know, but yeah, it's definitely more of a commitment, and your dog is getting older, and every time you leave, you're looking at him like, right. Just things start getting real, you know, but that's life, right? I mean, we were warned about this.
That's right. Yeah. There was cautionary tales all along the way. But yeah, it's amazing how our parents and our older peers that would share information and, you know, words of wisdom are becoming more and more intelligent and prophetic as we get older. It's all this stuff is ringing true about taking care of yourself, investing for the future, and all that kind of stuff, getting a good night's sleep, staying hydrated.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how it goes full circle with, I mean, I was growing up, you know, our parents were pretty hip, and my dad took us to see the Beatles, so they were and they were musicians, so they were ahead of the game in the hipness department, you know.
Yeah.
But there was always that whole, you know, I mean, the word around us was like, oh, Elvis, you know, watch out for this, watch out for that, and now it's watch out for this. And being parents, and when you say those words that you heard when you were younger, you just have to kind of go, you know, wisdom is wisdom, right? I mean, there's certain things that you teach your kids, and there's certain things they just got to learn on their own. I've been reading a lot about the sermon I heard the other day about letting your kid fall, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what our parents did. And it was easier back then. You know, back then they let us fall because we were in the back seat of a pickup truck. You know,
right.
However that was, maybe that wasn't the smartest thing, but we were all pretty streetwise and smart, and I think that's kind of lacking today. And even with my own son, sometimes I kind of try and do everything for him, and you got to just let people figure it out on their own, But yeah, back to your thing. That was definitely excess of time for everything. Movies. I mean, every movie back then was like, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Oh
over,
yeah.
something about that, right? So it's probably going to come back in a couple of years. It'll be the same thing. So nothing
Yeah.
new under the sun, and as the good book says.
Yeah. The thing that strikes me is that your your dad was probably incredibly pivotal for you and Greg, uh, being a musician, but just supporting and encouraging education, not just being enamored with being in a band, but really getting a great foundation. It strikes me that both you and Greg are incredibly schooled, and you were very dedicated to education and playing a wide variety of types of
Yeah.
music.
Well, thanks. I mean, my dad and my mom, they were working people, and back in Detroit, that's what you do. You just put
Right.
your head down, you do the work, and you don't complain. And I mean, music has always been fun. They always taught us this is fun. Do this for as long as you can. It's like with my son playing baseball. He's a pro ball player. It's like you just do it because it's such a great thing. It's such a weird thing and different than most people. You just got to follow that for as long as you go. And that's what our parents did. They just set us up, and my mom, fortunately for me, she made me just not be like a rock bass player, but she made me learn the trombone. She made me learn how to read trombone. She made me play the acoustic bass with the bow, all the things I didn't want to do. She was like the outside person just going, I know you're playing in a band and you're having fun and hanging out with girls and all that stuff, but if you're gonna really do this, she was kind of the she really just pushed us both to do that, because when Greg was, 12 years old, we'd be eating and he'd come upstairs with his snare drum and just start playing at the dinner table. And I was like, come on, man, you kidding me, right? I didn't even want to do music back then. But then my mom and dad bought me a bass. And within 2 weeks, I was already working in a wedding band with my dad on gigs. And that was the education. He goes, you want to make 50 bucks a night, twice a week? And I was like, 50 bucks? What? That was like $1,000 back then. So he
Right.
bought me a tuxedo, he bought me a bass and an amp. And I just showed up for this gig with this accordion player and him. And I'm going, what,
Right.
what am I doing here? And he just goes, and the
Right.
smartest thing he ever said, and which still to this day, just goes, listen to what's going around you and react to what you're hearing and just play and you'll figure it out, you know? And that was just so weird, but it was so true. It's kind of what we do, right? Even now, you get on stage with people and you just figure it out.
Right.
And then the punchline was always, and the second thing was, and then whenever I point to you, go get me a beer at the bar.
Right.
That was the main reason I was there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean,
yes,
the story that, or what you're, the picture that you're painting just sounds very wonderful. Kind of early 70s Detroit, and it's a confluence of, you're still, you've got the Motown thing happening, but you've also got the MC5, and you've got Ted Nugent, and you've got Jim McCarty, and
yeah,
Mitch Ryder in Detroit. We just all of that.
yeah,
Detroit is often passed over when we're talking about. I mean, obviously people know about Motown, but there's so much, such a rich, vibrant musical thing that was happening in Detroit.
yeah. It was pretty amazing. I mean, it was a pretty amazing time in general. I mean, just driving in your car and listening to AM radio and hearing Chicago, like the whole song from Chicago, like
Right.
would never do now. And then turning the radio station and hearing Birdland from Weather Report. It was like so vast and so amazing. The span of music was just so great. And the music scene there was so much going on that it's kind of like in LA when you fall into a certain thing, you can not even know that 2 blocks over there's a whole other scene going on with certain music. So I never even knew the Motown thing was as explosive because I was probably in 1968, I was only like 7 years old. So, and when Detroit was kind of burning and all this stuff was going on, I was a little detached from all that. And then years later, I'm realizing, wow, Motown's like 5 miles from our house. And
Right. Yeah.
then there's just all this rock and roll going on. But we were so tunnel visioned on just our own
Right.
playing in our own 5 bands that we had and playing rock stuff, and then getting into school and learning how to read and playing jazz, and then just immediately doing gigs. We were doing gig. Greg and I were doing gigs so early that we just got swept away with whatever was coming on, So we were playing tons of different styles really young, and that's the only reason why I think I'm still in the music business, because I'm not Billy Sheen, I'm not Stu Ham or Eddie Gomez. I'm not the greatest at these things, but I'm pretty good at being versatile in a lot of different areas, and that's because of the way we grew up,
Right.
solely. So carved out a living being mediocre by listening to a lot of music.
Far from mediocre, what the brilliance is, a great player, but you've been able to traverse a lot of different styles, which, if you're an Eddie Gomez or a Billy Shea, sometimes you get known as that thing.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't lend us, I mean, you could equally be hired by a singer-songwriter for a tour or a co-write or something like that, do a fusion gig, do an Americana gig, do a blues. I mean, there's no limit to what you could do. So
Yeah.
that musical currency is the greatest, I think, of the variety and the excitement of what all the different projects.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's funny for me. It's like I always thought myself I'd be like in a band, have my own band that would get famous and you'd play your music. And we had our own band for like 10 years called the Mustard Seeds in the 90s. And it was such a struggle because you don't realize when you're playing with all these other bands that they're doing all the work and you're just kind of getting a paycheck and you're working. It's cool. But when you're on the ground up doing your own band, it's so much work. So that thing probably aged everybody in the band 30 years in a 10-year span. And I think I was kind of saved from being a one band guy, which at the time I was so bummed when the band broke up, and that was kind of what I thought my vision was. And then it's turned into this other thing of just playing with tons of different bands and artists and stuff, which I look back now and I go, wow, there's definitely a grand scheme of the way things go that when you're in the middle of it, you never see it. It's like watching a parade from up top. You see where it starts and ends, and you can go, that's that. And you don't have that when you're in it in the middle of it. So I'm
Right.
really glad it worked out the way it is. And plus, I don't think if I had my own band and I was the lead singer and I had to talk about everything and all that stuff, I'd probably screw it up. I'd probably say something stupid. I'd probably do something, and I maybe wasn't, that responsible to handle that. So it's kind of funny how all things work out. You just
Yeah.
kind of got to just ride with it.
Yeah, I'm curious to know when exactly the songwriting thing kicked in because I was on Sunday as I was cutting the grass, I was listening to the new Redcoats record, and I was texting Andy Timmons, and I wasn't aware that you were the vocalist on the project, and so I thought, well, maybe I said, man, love your vocals on a couple of these tunes. He said, oh man, that's all Matt. Oh
Hey,
wow,
Andy's a great singer. He just went to Liverpool and he
yeah,
recorded it. Yeah, and he sent me a song to sing backgrounds on. He's singing and he sounded exactly like John Lennon. So he should have sang the Redcoat stuff. He's really good.
yeah.
But yeah,
But
the
the tunes are as we exchange texts, the tunes are fantastic.
oh man, thanks
What
for
a
listening to it.
Yeah, what a smorgasbord. Mask on, mask off. One of my favorites.
Well, thanks for checking it out. It's kind of one of those things. I started writing pretty young in high school and stuff like that. I remember my first song I ever wrote was the hit song "I Want to Get Naked with My Baby." That was my first hit.
Right. Yeah.
15 years old. I don't even know what that meant or what that was, but it was kind of like I was listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it was kind of a funk song like that. And it was just terrible. But it
Sure.
just, I remember getting into college, and my friend Paul Ventimiglia had a little 8-track studio, and he had me come over one day, and he goes, just goof around with it. And then I sang something, and then I doubled it. It's the first time I ever did it. It was like 1979, something like
Yeah.
that. And I remember that sound, and I went, "That's the Beatles, man. That's the beat. That's what they do." And
Yeah.
then I just got that one day just changed my life for like, this is fun. So just wrote a lot of horrible songs for years and stuff. Moved to LA. I got a publishing deal with Island Music for a while, and still didn't I couldn't play well with others. I was like the guy in the sandbox, the kid that I couldn't write songs with people because I wanted to do everything myself because it was so fun.
Right.
So doing a publishing deal, they want you to write with other artists and stuff.
Right.
And I just was like not great at that. So I'm way better when I can throw things out to other people. So like with the Redcoats, it's it's just knowing for me, like writing something that anybody like Andy could play it. Like I'll be just sitting there playing a melody, coming up with some crazy like mask on, mask off. It's kind of a weather report,
Yeah.
past Teen Town kind of thing with a crazy head. And and Andy always like is just going like, "You're killing me here, man. What do you know how this is on the guitar?" Because I'll be writing it, just doing a demo on the piano, and doing it real slow, kind of coming up with it, and then get to the regular tempo. And I go, "Wow, I don't know if anybody can play this." Then I'll send the send the thing to him, and then he'll just. Andy's such a freak because he won't punch in anything when he's playing. I don't know if you know this, but he will not let himself punch in ahead of a song. And that's like, it's like going. So he memorizes everything. He's not reading it. He gets it in his head. He gets it in his fingers. And then like when him and Mike, the co-producer, he would punch him in and stuff, but he would never punch him in. He would record him and play the whole head. And if he made one mistake, he'd do it over again. And when we did our live gigs, I couldn't believe that he memorized everything and played all those heads like it was nothing. Because
Yeah.
when he plays, I remember seeing him the first time and wanted to start doing this band because of seeing him play. It just looked like he was in another planet when he played, and it just looked so easy, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
that's what I want to do when I play. I remember going to see the California Angels play with Garrett Anderson was an outfielder, and he was an amazing player, but everybody used to dog on him because he'd make the hard plays look easy.
Yeah.
He'd catch a ball, he would just go back where most guys would be like showing, like diving and catching the ball. Oh, that guy's amazing. He would do the hard stuff and make it look easy. And that's something that I want to do. Is just I don't want to look like everything is so difficult that I'm sweating. It's just like I want to be able to play it, and that's what Andy does. So writing for this band, I just know that whatever I throw out there, they're going to do their thing to it and make it 10 times better. So the writing thing is where my brain has always been at, and playing on the road is great and working and doing stuff. I love being in bands, but writing is the thing for me, that
Yeah.
that move.
Do you have inspirations, or maybe a couple that you would share that, or point to and say, yeah, these were kind of uh, very inspirational writers that meant a lot to you? I mean, you mentioned weather reports, and maybe Joe Zawinul or somebody like that.
Yeah. Well, tons of them. I mean, I remember going to see Kansas in Detroit in high school, and I mean, I wore out every record anyway, just listening to it over, not even knowing that you're developing songwriting stuff because you're listening to great songs every day. I remember seeing Kansas and seeing them live and just amazed at how each guy in that band did their role. Like Dave Hope, the bass player, amazing bass player. He's not like jamming on sections and coming up with stuff to go check me out. He's playing his thing that song is. It's like one thing I hate is when you go see a band and the lead singer is changing every melody because he can. I know you can, but I've heard this song my whole life and I'd really appreciate it if,
Right.
you get kind of selfish when you listen like that. And it's cool that people do that, but I remember seeing Kansas and the light went on that if everybody does their job, that song is going to be great. And then I would listen. Then I remember going to see Pat Metheny in college
Yeah.
and seeing how he had structured his band. That even though they're playing like crazy and all this stuff's going on, everyone's still doing their part. And there's a time to stick out and play, especially as a bass player. There's a time to step out and do your thing. And that's what I love when playing bass on a song, a pop song or something. I'll try and find at least one moment where I kind of stick my head out for a second and then I come back. If I stick my head out too much, and that's the beauty of doing internet sessions or doing tracks now where you can do 3 takes. Like
Yeah.
Greg and I will go, here's the track that you sent us the demo for, or in a room with somebody, we go, this is the way you played the demo. The second take is more like what we would do to the song, kind of split the difference. And then the third one is if we were nuts and we would do our own thing. And then you can edit it the way you want. And that seems to work pretty good. And it's funny when you, as a bass player, there are times when you can stick your head in, but when you stick it in too much, it's like, you know, get out of here. But I've just kind of listened to so many bands over my whole life that I've kind of veered on the side of trying to be more tasteful than being over the top. And this record might maybe not be a great example for that because it's kind of over the top for a specific reason. And one of my favorite things to do with Greg is kind of, we call it unleashing the beast. You know, we'll put a rhythmic figure up and he'll just go crazy and try to throw us off the train and just do his thing. And I mean, I could listen to him play anything because he's so good. And every time I play with him, I get exhausted by the end of the night. It's kind of like when you go play basketball, pick up basketball, and you've played for an hour and you're just totally drenched. And then Michael Jordan comes out and he starts slamming everything, and you're like going, "That's what I feel like sometimes with Greg. He just pours it on, and I'm just
Yeah.
amazed by it." So I couldn't be in a band with a bunch of cooler
Oh yeah.
people and nice people and great guys and very patient to go through the process of recording these records, the last record and this one, because the first one was during COVID and we were all trying to figure out what we're going to do with our lives and stuff. And it's just a bunch of great guys. And that's the main thing, is being, ever since I was a kid, being in bands with your friends. You know, that's all that matters, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's having the partnership with Greg has got to be especially sweet because
Yeah.
you guys are both steeped in being servants of the song. Whether Greg adopting the Ringo thing. I mean, for all the things that he can play at his core, Ringo's his guy. The guy that's going to be the perfect servant of the song. And for yourself, having that mentality, but having all those other influences where you can play Rocco Prestia stuff or uh, Steve Rodby kind of things, or the
Yeah.
more out there things, but then also being able to play, you know,
Wow.
in a
That's an
session.
amazing way to put it, as a servant of the song. And I think that's kind of, at least that's my worldview of life in general, is you're here in life and you're kind of called to be a servant to, in a spiritual way, of just helping people, trying to be cool to people, like that verse, put God first before everything and love your neighbor as yourself. It's like that those two lines would change the whole world if everybody did that. Of course, everyone's not going to do that, but I can do it. I can try and do that. If being a servant to my friend, to my wife, not in a weird way of servanthood, but just acknowledging the situation and going, this is what needs to happen for this, to help this person or to do this, and you can be nice about it. And being a servant of a song is a perfect way to put it, because when you're doing sessions in LA or Nashville or anything, your goal for that 2 hour session or 10 hour session is to serve that song and serve that person that's paying you the paycheck. And that goes back to Detroit. You earn every dollar and you just be thankful that you're hired,
Yeah.
and to leave the room nicer than you got there. And when you leave, you want to have that producer or that writer go, man, that they just made it so much fun and easy, and I want to call them again. And that's how you work. You have them call you again because they like you or that you did a good job. And that's where a lot of people go off the ropes. They just kind of don't understand that, and then they wonder why they're not working, or nobody calls them, or nobody wants to play in the sandbox with them. It's just life stuff. So
Yeah.
trying to get that together, I mean, it's a long road, but we're trying.
Yeah, it's a challenge when the on a studio date, because especially these days with everything being, if you do get in the same room with everybody, you're very fortunate. But
Yeah.
the whole idea of being a cheerleader for the project, you know, and I think Frank Zappa used to refer to it as guys that would find their way quickly out of his circle would be guys that were rehearsing material for their upcoming solo album. You know, a way of, hey, check this out. This is
Yeah.
going to be really amazing when you hear it. You're going to be so blessed to have
Oh,
me lay this down. And that's the complete antithesis of what the studio vibe or in a band of any kind.
isn't
It's
that so funny though, man? That's just the way life is. Like like I could get super excited about this record and just go, I can't wait to play it for somebody. And just the other day, I got the CD, and whatever CDs are anymore, if anybody even has a CD player. But a guy had a CD player in his car, and I go, here, check it out. And that's the fun of music, right? You work really, really hard to do this thing, and you're digging through the details of the recording, you're changing things. Mike and I would always change ideas of stuff and come up with a completely different concept for the song. And even though you're hating having to do the work when it's just like, oh man, it's like figuring out a puzzle. When it comes together, you go, yes, this is it. This is fantastic. This is great. And then we listen to mixes and master it. So great. And then the fun ends when you start putting it out in the real world to have people go, well, maybe you should have done this or whatever. So I went and played a couple songs, got about 3 songs, just playing sections in. And the guy goes, that's really cool, man. Check this out. And he throws in his CD, right? And he starts playing this song. And I'm cool with that, and it's great, but it's kind of like when you're talking to somebody and they're talking back to you and you're already thinking, well, I'm going to say this before they even get it out. You're already going to push your point. That guy was loaded and ready to hit me with his songs
Yes.
way before I even stuck that thing in there. And I went, that's who we are, man. That's just who we are. I'm that way too, so I couldn't blame him. But it was just so funny because it just gets so anticlimactic, and for me, it's still weird to sit and listen to a whole album anymore. I mean, we've been trained lately, one song and out, from the culture where we're at with music now. Every time I listen to the Redcoats CD from beginning to end, I physically get exhausted because it, there's just so much going on. But then I go, well, I don't think it's the record. I think it's any record. So I sat and listened to like 3 records all the way back, and I think we've all changed, whether we know it or not. We just don't do that anymore. It's like seems like so long to listen to a 40-minute album.
Yeah. Well, I try as a discipline to uh, not listen to anything a la carte. In fact, I try to set up little thing. My wife got me these really cool new earbud things I can listen to while cutting the grass, and they're these.
Nice.
It's super nice. They sound great, but I'm able to cut the grass, and it's about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, something like that. So I can listen to a full album. I was listening to the Redcoats, and it was, in fact, Andy texted me, don't get a speeding ticket for listening to some of the songs because they're really
Yeah.
be really energetic as I'm cutting
Yeah.
the grass. But I like the idea of hearing what, especially when you know the players, in advance. You kind of go, you get excited about, okay, man, this is like a movie. It's like I want to
Yeah.
sit down, I want to see the whole movie from beginning to end, and then I
Yeah.
want to, if it's really good, which is this definitely is really good, I want to go back and do it again. I have to drive to Cincinnati to do some shows. So I'll be listening to that and some other new releases.
Yeah.
I just
Well,
love the idea of hearing it. I want to hear it all because it just gets me, even if the songs are wildly different. I just like to be in the kind of like in the room, imagining what it was like to hear that being played back for the first time.
that's so great. Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you listening to it. It is funny because I mean, you probably just like me when you're growing up, you like the new Chicago album comes out, and I open it up and there's the pictures of the band, and I go, that's Peter Cetera. He looks different than he did on the last record. He looks really cool, man. He's wearing a Daniel Boone hat or whatever he's doing. And then you go Terry Kath, you go through the guys and you get to know the guys.
Yeah.
And when you hear the music, it's like a family. And then you look at the lyrics, you do this. That's so far gone now
Yeah.
that I hear you, man. That's the same way that I do it. And like when I hear a new Pat Metheny record or anything like that, it's just you feel like you know the people and you want to just know what's going on with them and see the story and listen to the whole album from beginning to end. It's a lost art, man. So that's awesome that you're cutting your grass doing that. And
Or
back
whatever
to you.
whatever I can, projects I can do where it's going to afford me the time to just take that in because, like what you're talking about, the albums, that was kind of our poor man's art collection back in the day. But to me, the gatefold sleeve and the lyrics and all that stuff and the personnel that played on the recordings was as important. I wanted to know, oh my gosh, Lukather's on that. That's awesome. Dean Parks, awesome. Abe Laboriel. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because to me, if I I wish they had playing cards back in the day with your favorite musicians. I got a Steve Lukather 1979 card,
Yeah,
and I got a
yeah,
Larry Carlton
yeah.
84 card.
I'll trade you my Lee Sklar for your
Yeah,
Eric Carlton. Yeah, that's a good idea, man. Yeah, sadly, that's a lost art, it seems, but we still, we can still do it and keep that love of listening to new music. I'm sure that you get new stuff in your desk every day, and you look at it and listen to it and weed through what you like and what you don't like. But uh, what an amazing time we grew up in, though, to have that all those different styles of music to draw from. I mean, and it is now too. On YouTube, you just put on YouTube, Spotify, anything, you just go, it's out there. You just gotta find what you like. It's
yeah.
great.
AM radio was very powerful back in the 70s because I remember being a little kid sitting up front when you were allowed to sit up front without a seatbelt on, in my mom's 67 Mustang,
Yeah,
and just listening to the stuff that was on the radio. And it could be Beach Boys and then a Miles Davis tune and then a Chicago tune and then whatever. It was just, there was no
yeah,
barriers. It was just all great stuff.
yeah.
The Carpenters or something like that. And so you really didn't, if it was good, it was good. You didn't really have any preconceived idea of, I like that song, but I don't like that song, but that's okay because,
I
you know,
guess that's just the business of music that did that to us to make it so compartmentalized now. It's like, I guess that was before it really turned into the mechanism that it is now. It seems like it was more open, free to just listen to everything. I guess it is now too, right? I don't really check out, the business of music that much these days, but it seems like there's tons of stuff out there. I mean, Spotify and all these companies seems like for $10 a month you can listen to anything. I mean, that's pretty amazing, you know.
uh,
But it's just a different time, So we
yeah,
can't we can't we can't be like the old guys saying it was so much better. I remember my engineer guy I used to always work with when it went to Pro Tools. He goes, "I'm never gonna go to that computer stuff. It's always got to be 2-inch tape." Now he's like the number one Pro Tools guy, and
yeah,
he's laughing about that. You just have to let it go.
yeah, it's kind of, it's the pros and cons to everything. So while tape may be inherently a little warmer, I don't know. I mean, I for one don't hear it these days with the stuff that I'm hearing, and it's not that important. But to me, um, the difference of fighting for one over the other, but the expediency with which you can make changes, and in some ways it may take you longer because you have more options, especially with all the plugins and all that kind of stuff. It may not be faster necessarily unless you're just really disciplined, and I think the better you are as a composer and the more that you can hear it in advance before you start
Yeah,
committing to the recording DAW of your choice.
yeah.
But if the compositional skills are maybe a little lesser, maybe it takes so long because you're still trying to figure out the nuts and bolts of it.
Well, I think that's the blessing that we have, that we grew up. We're probably the last generation of remembering what got us here and how we used to have. I remember Greg and I were out with Maynard Ferguson in the like 1981. First thing we do is live the 2-track album with Maynard, and I was like 19 years old, just freaking out in LA for the first time. Go, ready,
Yeah.
play. No mistakes. You don't do it over again. This is it. That was the first album. Then another album live in San Francisco, live the 2-track. So we grew up with that. You better be good right now because this is it, and completely oblivious to, at the time, because we're younger and stupid. Not even like, if I had to do that now, it'd be like,
All
So
right. Yeah.
there's that blessing of that. So we bring all that into this new stuff of recording things 10 different times, and we can draw on all that stuff and make it a positive thing. I don't know what it's going to be like for kids in 20 years that don't have any of that to draw on. That, I mean, everything's been given to them. You can tune everything, you can do everything. But I mean, like with the Redcoats album, I mean, I would never want to record that on 2-inch tape because you
Right.
would just it would just be so frustrating. And you want to do three takes just to see what's going to happen, you know. I mean, I always think that that first take is that gift from God take that you hear, that just what comes out of you the first thing.
Yeah.
And usually that's the one that I think is the golden one. But then these other takes, you just go, wow, that's, where did that come from, you know? So it's a it's a weird beast, man, because they're both great, you know, but uh, there's no way we could have done this record that way with the
Yeah.
2 inch. So it's a good
Yeah.
thing.
The thing that the, with this generation of uh, musicians, I don't think the technique has ever been greater,
Yeah,
but I don't know if the uh, experience of playing with live musicians has ever been lower in terms of a lot of the folks that are doing the YouTube or Instagram guitar stuff, bass, whatever. It's done in kind of isolation, playing
yeah,
to a track or something like that, or in front of their camera, which I think is awesome as long as people are making music. But there's something lost in the being in the same room. If you think back to the way that you got started, your your precision bass with a curly cable plugged into your custom amp in the vicinity of Greg's kit,
right. Yeah,
and the first feeling of locking in together in a groove of some kind. It's a very special thing playing with other
yeah,
musicians.
yeah. When you start out with that bass and drums, and all of a sudden the guitar players locks in, and you're looking at each other, and one
Yeah.
more keyboard player start, it's this phenomenal thing that happens, and it just explodes, and that's the interaction thing, you know. Um, I don't know if I told you, we have this show with my brother and my friend Paul. We have a show called the Song in a Day Show. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And what we do every day, or not, we like 2 times a month, we'll wake up and we got cameras rolling the whole time. It's kind of like Seinfeld and Cars, you know, that
Oh
Coffee
yeah,
and Cars,
yeah.
and
Comedians in cars getting coffee. Yeah.
and the Seinfeld show and Friends all kind of put together. We're doing it all ourselves, and it's on YouTube and different things. So we wake up and we go to Starbucks and we go, okay, we got to write a song today. So what's going on? What do we want to talk about? What kind of a groove do we do? So we figure out, okay, we'll do like this and this. And so we kind of write the idea, and then we go to a studio, and then we just track the drums and bass and write the song as we're going along. And then throughout the day, we invite different players, either in the studio, or like Andy did one that's coming out this week, Andy and Mike from the Redcoats. And we have a singer, a different person every week. We write the songs we write the words in the car on the way thing. It's like, you know, it's this big stress fest, and it has to be mixed that night. It has to be a song in a day. So we end up going to like 3 or 4 different studios. We sing backgrounds, we do everything, and it's the funnest thing, and one of the funnest things I've ever done, because it's stressful, but then you go, okay, we've done songs our whole lives. We've listened to music. We can do this. We can do this. You know, it was constantly like pushing each other to just go, got to come up with a lyric for this line, you know. And the good thing about it is it doesn't have to be, it's not the best song of the day show. It's just the song of the day. And at the end, we put it to a lyric video, and we look at the whole day, and you go, that's why we got into music, to see something
Yeah.
that didn't exist at the beginning of the day. There was no idea anything was going to happen. And throughout the day, this thing was created. And at the end, you look at it and you just go, there's something in the world that wasn't there yesterday. You know,
Yeah.
may not be the greatest thing in the world or whatever, but it's usually pretty darn good, you know? So that's what music is for me. And like with the Redcoats album, when I hear it, I just go, man, what else are we going to do in our lives, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
it's like playing in a sandbox, and we all go on a road and make money playing and doing stuff like that to support being able to do this, because that's what we really want to do, so
Yeah.
what a
That's
gift.
that's an amazing thing, because you're essentially doing what more of us should be doing at our age, and that's like playing with a kid's heart and enthusiasm.
Yeah,
Sometimes we get so wrapped up in the mechanicals of it and the machinations of success and chart play, or how many streams does it get, and it pulls you completely away from the joy of being with your buddies, right? I mean, that's exactly what you would do as a kid.
yeah,
If you
that's
have
the
the
thing, man.
ability at 10 years of age to do what you guys are doing, you'd be
Yeah,
doing that every day. So here you are at this age, all very successful in your career and just having fun.
Yeah, man, that's exactly it. I mean, we have time working against us. We're all getting older, and we can be that crusty guy at any second and just turn it off and go, I don't want to listen to these kids' music. I don't like that. They're not good, or they're too good, or they just learn their stuff from the backs of everybody. You just got to chuck that stuff away and go. Greg and I will do a session and we'll go out to eat and we'll just look at each other and go, we just got paid $1,000 to just play on this guy's songs for a couple hours, and people still want us. Still, people put up with us and they want us to be there, and we're making a living. We're not completely out on the street. Somehow this worked, and we're still here, and we're able to express our, you know, with words on songs and things that we're doing and all the people we get to meet. And it is about just being in the room with people
Yeah.
and loving people and getting to know them and making new friends. I mean, just in the last 2 weeks of being off the road, we've been playing a couple, bunch of sessions, and I felt like I have 4 or 5 new best friends that I never knew existed because we just showed up at their houses and studios, and
Yeah.
it's just like you're never too old to make new friends, and
Oh, amen to
it,
that. That's for sure.
so I mean, we need all the help we can get, and yeah, you're right, man. You just count your blessings and just go, what a joke. I mean, that we can get to do this and get paid for it and hang out with cool people, because musicians are usually cool people, and it's it's such a gift, man, and I'm never going to take that for granted. And if we can, especially writing and working on studio stuff, to keep your brain young and to keep it like childlike as much as you can, to because you can get pulled off course so easy, thinking about how many likes did this video do that we did. It's just that's where it goes off the rails for me. Just make the music and don't worry about it.
Yeah, yeah. To have something at the end of the day, it's kind of like the cherry on top. It's the process was really where the fun is, but to have the end project where you can all sit back, and then it's the camaraderie of sitting around laughing about the things. Because oftentimes with musicians, what we're talking about when we're just hanging out is something that got screwed up along the way and how we
Right,
survived through it. It's not
right.
like we're reveling in the amazing high musical, because most musicians I know are not really wanting to think too much about something going really well, because it's like that's kind of it's expected. It's like we want to talk about, oh man, I screwed that up, or can you believe how that turned into this? It's the human.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it's like when you watch basketball, you're glued to Dennis Rodman because you're just going, he's going to do something crazy any second,
And he's
and I
like,
want to see that. And it's like that with sports, but it's like that with music. Like when we play the Redcoat gigs, we'll be playing ahead of a song, and Andy will look at me while he's playing it, going like, "You're such an idiot for writing this. Why did you do this to me?" And just, but I'm sure when Andy was recording that, he's like, you got to be kidding me. But now when you're
yeah,
in the van and we're all sitting around talking about it, it's usually the weirdest stuff that becomes the funniest, greatest stories, right? The
right,
struggles, the
yeah,
struggles become, yeah, and that's kind of like the thing about letting your kids fail. The failure determines your, trajectory of your life. You just have to laugh. You have to laugh about it, right? I mean, how many horrible musical experiences have I had that made me a better player, that I look back at and go, that was so horrible at the time, but I learned a lot more from that stuff than the easy stuff.
yeah. It's like the from that Woody Allen movie where Alan Alda's character says tragedy plus time equals comedy.
That's good.
Just need
That's
that
good.
time for that thing to kind of based in
Yeah.
its own juices to where you can look at it and go, okay, that was pretty funny. But it's
Woody Allen, man, I love that line. What does he say? He goes, "I'm not that uh, I'm not that scared of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens." Something like that.
that's right.
Some line like that. It's like that guy's crazy.
Yeah. So congratulations on the Redcoats.
Well, thank you.
Just fantastic. Just couldn't be more excited for you guys. Really,
Well, I
really.
appreciate you listening to it and going the whole 40 minutes without passing out. That's pretty cool.
It was wonderful.
I feel like I should send you an Advil endorsement or something.
That's right, for being able to persevere all 40 minutes.
Right.
What do you have coming up of note?
Well,
Yeah.
heading out today for our REO tour for a couple of weeks. We're going to be going out with REO and Train for the summer. I'm kind of filling in for Bruce, the bass player, who had back surgery, and
Oh, wow.
hopefully he's coming back soon. We're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. Just doing that and doing a gig with Elton in June, a one-off gig, and seeing those guys again, and just working and writing and just
Okay.
trying to live life, trying to
Yeah.
be balanced. I'm trying to balance things out so it's not just music, just doing as much different stuff as possible to keep the old ticker going.
Yeah.
Ticker.
And the Elton band is you and Davey and
Davy Johnston, Nigel Olson, Ray Cooper, John Mahon, and Kim Bullard. So we're just doing a couple one-offs, and yeah, I don't know what's going on with him, but whatever Elton's doing, I'm sure he's doing fine.
that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, would love to have Dave Amato on the show one of these days. So if you think of it,
I'll see him in about an hour at the airport, throwing
awesome.
throwing peanuts at his head.
Yeah, last time I ran into Dave was in Cincinnati Airport. We were both missed our connecting flights, and he had his iPhone out showing me his collection of Les Pauls. I had
Oh
man,
my, oh man,
he was scroll. He kept scrolling and scrolling. I was like, oh my god, those are amazing. So he had
he's killing me. He he hooked me up with the guys at Fender to get a deal for some basses, and he got me into getting a couple of new jazz basses for the tour, and turned into two, turned into four, turned into seven. So I've got seven. I'm like going in debt playing with REO Speedwagon. So, but Dave showed me his collection. He took me to the locker and showed me his
oh yeah,
stuff. I've never seen anything like that ever. That's
yeah,
insane. And he doesn't stop. He keeps going every day. He shows me pictures on the plane of something else. He just bought a couple new basses and was like, "You're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
have to stop.
yeah.
Sometime you're gonna have to stop."
He's he and his pal Norm at Norm Harris at Norm's Rare Guitars. I'm sure Norm is. Hey Dave, got some goodies for you.
That's his retirement is Dave Amato right there. Yeah, it's so funny. I got one story with Norm. I bought a '62 P bass from him, and it was like 2 grand at the time, something like that. And then my son was born. Like a year later, my son was born, and I'm going, I'm out of music, man. I got to be responsible here. So I started selling all my gear to get a FedEx job or something, so I could be a responsible parent. And I took the P bass back to Norm a year later, and I go, here, man. Remember I bought this from you? He goes, yeah, yeah. What else you got? And I showed him an Epiphone. He goes, um, I'll buy them all right now for $800. And I went, Norm, I just. And he goes, that's the business. And I went, okay, I get
I get
it. They said there's a reason why Norm is Norm and Matt is Matt. So yeah, but Dave definitely has got the gear out the wazoo. It's crazy.
yeah,
Did you see the collection he has where they're all standing, all the amps and everything, just for
yeah,
like 2 walls?
yeah. And I thought to myself, I don't know what kind of space he must have. I think he has a space in North Hollywood or something to keep
And
all his stuff.
he's at over at Mates. Yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah, we used to rehearse over at Mates, which is right behind Dave Friedman's place at Friedman Amps. Yeah.
yeah, it's quite a sight, man. He's a good guy. What a great guitar player.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, and amazing stories. I mean, he shared a few with me. This is going back a few years when I ran into him last, so I'm sure he's got even more guitars and even more stories.
Well, I'll tell him to give you a call because I'll be seeing him before I can say Delta Airlines. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, frequent flyer.
exactly, exactly.
Oh man, this has been great, Matt.
Well,
Fantastic.
thank you for having me and for picking up and being my new pal. See, I made a new
That's right.
friend today,
Like
just like
that.
that.
Yeah, it was amazing. So,
Well, thank you for putting up with me, buddy.
oh, you're great.
And keep
Thanks.
playing that cool guitar back there, man. That thing's a beast.
Which one?
The one you picked up,
Oh yeah,
it
the Firebird.
it looks like it weighs like 15, 20 pounds.
Yeah, it's great if you want to like preparing charcuterie. Uses.
Get your charcuterie board together, chop up your meats and cheeses.
Meats and cheeses. I love it.
Jesus.
All right, buddy. You get to work, man.
All right.
Thanks,
See ya.
buddy.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Guitar Hang Podcast, conversations with noteworthy guitar players from around the world. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications to stay updated on our latest episodes.